Hey, thanks for being here, Rob. Let's start off with what is happening out in the economy with the Fed. They're raising interest rates. We've seen the LIBOR rate. It's continually rising. If we look at the 3-month, we see it's gone from like 1.17 in May of 2017 all the way up to 2.32 in April. And as this continually moves up, how is this going to affect the economy? How is this going to affect housing? How is this going to affect what the central bank does next?
I would say to you, Dave, if the powers that be are determined to continue raising rates, they have a desire to implode the economy. And I don't think that they're going to maintain their recent course of action raising rates, because I honestly believe that the powers that be are afraid that if they collapse the economy, that civil unrest could ensue, and a dangerous situation could become a lot more dangerous. So my personal view is that we are much more likely to see a Fed doing an about face in the very near future and lowering rates rather than continuing to raise them. That's my own personal opinion on this. And I do believe that long-term rates, as expressed by the 10-year bond, I've been saying this for quite some time now. I feel that the long-term rates have more or less topped out, and I just don't think we're going to see them rise materially from here. And I'm not saying we couldn't go from 3 to 310 or 315, but I would suggest to you that 10-year rate at 4% is completely off the table, at least to me right now, unless the powers that be decide to collapse the system on Trump and blame him. But ultimately, I don't think that the system is because I think I guess at the end of the day, I believe that the U.S. military has Trump's back. And the U.S. military is not going to allow the financial elites to pull the plug on the economy and destroy it. So I would look for the Fed to be lowering rates. The next material move in interest rates, I believe, will be down, not up. That's my thinking.
You're saying that you think they're going to be lowering it. I mean, do you think we're going to be heading towards the negative territory like out in Europe?
I believe we will ultimately see negative interest rates being inflicted by the Fed Treasury complex. Yes.
So do you think they're doing this? And you're talking about the central banking establishment where they can, bring rates up and bring them down. Are they doing this because they don't have their person in office? Let's say Clinton was elected and she was president. Do you think they would have no problem in crashing the economy in that scenario?
Well, Dave, I think it goes deeper than that. And I don't think it necessarily has to do with Clinton or a Bush or Obama or anything. What we're talking about, and ultimately what underlies this, is the life cycle of fiat money. And the life cycle of fiat money predicates that the amount of money in existence when you have compound interest, usury with compound interest, dictates that the supply of money must grow at a very predictable rate for a very long period of time. But in this life cycle, and this is math, this is not emotion, and a person who's explained this very well is Chris Martenson. And if you Google Chris Martenson and you go to his website and you go through a little tutorial called the Crash Course, And what the crash course produced by Chris Martenson, what it explains very succinctly, is that money, fiat money, in its life cycle, grows at a very predictable, even rate for a certain period of time, but then it inflects. The growth rate of money inflects and it goes vertical. We're on the vertical part of the curve now, and money must be created at an infinite pace. And what that means is that each marginal unit of money that's created when it's in its vertical growth phase is worth less than the last one created. And what this ends in is what Austrian economists refer to as a crack-up boom or hyperinflation. And you can't produce anything in increasingly infinite amounts and have the marginal value of the next unit be worth more. And you see what that does is it takes a deflationary collapse off the table, because the money is growing at a vertical rate. And what governments have been doing to us, Dave, is they've been trying to hide and disguise the debasement of money. And they're telling us that our economy's getting better, but it really isn't. And the way we can show this and explain this to people who don't get it is we can just look at marginal wages median income in America. Look at median income over the last 10 years in America. Median income's gone from $50,000 a year in 2007 to $59,000 in 2017. And that's an increase of $9,000 in median income over the last 10 years. And that increase of $9,000 is very representative of official U.S. government inflation data, which tells us inflation's running around 1.5% a year. But the interesting thing to take note of is $50,000 10 years ago bought 23,000 pounds of ground beef. But $59,000 today buys only 17,000 pounds of ground beef. You see, and while geez, Rob, you're using just one item. There's an infinite number of items we could put in this model besides ground beef. But what it's showing and what it demonstrates is the debasement of money. And it means that more money is buying less. And that is very consistent with what the crash course explains in the life cycle of fiat money. More money is being created, infinite amounts of money are being created, and yet the dollars are buying less. That is monetary debasement, and that is symptomatic of an emerging crack-up boom, which is what the Austrian economists have long said is the way fiat regimes end. And you know what? And this fiat regime will ultimately be no different than other fiat regimes in history, because they all end this way. It's like we know the life cycle for humans. Humans are born and they live more or less somewhere between, on average, they live 70 to 80 years of age. Some outliers, some people make it to age 100 or 110. But there's nobody on the planet that's 200 years old. At least nobody I've met. I don't think I've ever known anyone that lived to 150. Well, fiat money has a life cycle like humans have a life cycle, and fiat money regimes die, just like people die. And our fiat money regime is in the process of dying right now. And there are some people who would even suggest to you that it's in the intensive care unit right now. So that's where we are, and that's where we're headed. And it doesn't really matter how much money they create. This is the path we're on, and they have to continue creating this money. And by the way, the little hook to add into this discussion is that when you increase interest rates, it dies quicker. So if you think that the system, you see, the people in the U.S. Treasury and the people at the Federal Reserve and the people at the Bank for International Settlements, they know all this. So if you think they're going to hasten their own demise, then keep banking on higher interest rates. But you know what? Most